Hi, I'm Mrs. Painter. Welcome back to my kitchen. Today we're going to demonstrate the sunflower seed keto bread recipe, and we're also going to make it with almonds and cashews. First, I want to give credit to Sweet as Honey. They're on Pinterest. If I can figure it out, I will include a link on the description of this video. If not, I'll just do a quick recipe type up for you. But let's get started. To make this as easy as possible, we're going to start with measuring out the common ingredients in all three bowls. So I have 3 bowls here. Let's see if I've got this in view. I think I do. And we're going to use a little scale. I bought this off of Amazon, and a little container to weigh our ingredients. One thing that's important about this recipe is it says weigh the ingredients. Don't just measure the ingredients. So I'm going to turn my scale on. And what you want to do in this situation is you actually want to measure the weight of your container. So my container is 7 1/8 ounces. All right, so let's do the common ingredients first. You can see I have 3 bowls here, one for each type of bread we're going to try to make. So let's start with our psyllium husk. And it says we need 1 ounce of psyllium husk. That works out to be about 5 tablespoons. Just a little bit more. Again, this is by weight. All right, so bread number 1. Let's do bread number 2. There we go. All right, so this is our psyllium powder. Again, it's 1 ounce. Next, we're going to do 2 ounces of coconut flour. So that's for bread number 1. 2 ounces of coconut flour. All right, and 1 more here. And again, I buy a lot of my stuff in bulk. So my flaxseed, you can buy flaxseed ground, but my flaxseed is actually whole. So before we do the flaxseed, let's go ahead and do our baking powder and our salt. So each of these bowls are going to need a ½ teaspoon of salt. I'm actually using Redmond ancient salt. I also like Himalayan sea salt. I'm going to do 2 teaspoons of baking powder. I've tried a lot of different keto breads, and this one is my favorite. It's a little more work. Once you get used to doing it, it's not that hard. I think for some people it's a little bit of a hang-up thinking about the weight, but again, once you have one of these little scales, it makes it so easy. All right, so next we're going to do our golden flaxseed meal, and we only need 3/4 of an ounce of that. Now, the last time I made this bread, I accidentally forgot to grind the flaxseed. It's still turned out, but it's definitely better if it's ground. Let's just reset our scale. All right. And we'll go ahead and grind our flaxseed. This takes hardly any time at all. It's really fast. All right, that's for bowl number 1. Now let's do bowl number 2. When we grind the sunflower seeds and the almonds and the cashews, it's almost going to turn to a nut butter, and we're going to stop just short of that. And I think you can actually make a flaxseed butter if you want. I have no idea how that would taste, but it is an option. And if it sticks a little bit, just use a little brush to get the extra out so you don't miss any of your ingredients. Okay, so our last measurement of flaxseed. We'll go ahead and grind this. And we're going to go ahead and add these into our third bowl. So now we have our base ingredients most of our base ingredients, the dry ingredients that goes in every recipe. We have the coconut flour, the flaxseed meal, the psyllium husk, the baking powder, and the salt. And I can see why they say go by weight, because depending on what you're using, it can be like a lot bulkier. So the recipe weight is going to be 10 ounces of sunflower seeds. There we go. Now we'll go ahead and grind our sunflower seeds. It's nice using a container that's a little bit flexible because then it makes it easier to pour. There we go. And again, this will be about like making a nut butter. We're not trying to make a nut butter, but it doesn't really matter if it gets to that point, but it probably will. You can see it did just a little bit. So right now we're doing the bowl with the sunflower seeds. See, it's super easy to make your own nut or seed flours using a blender. All right, so we have the sunflower seeds. Let's do our almonds next. There we go. We're going to grind our almonds. Just till we get a flour. I think we got these pretty good. Let's just double check and make sure yep, we got it pretty good. And you can see it makes a bit of a nut butter when you're doing this, but that's fine. That's nothing to worry about. Just using my little spatula here to get this out. Although I almost need something a little more heavy duty here for that. Right. And our spatula should be enough to get it out of the rest, to get the rest out. And now we're going to do the cashews. And I just look for where I can find the best deal when I'm purchasing nuts. And usually that's by bulk. Seems like a little less volume with the cashews, but they must be more dense. So let's just give it a try and see how this works out. Those ground really easily. Let's go ahead and get this in our bowl. Now this does make really small loaves, but they're wonderful. They're a lot like an artisan bread, which is pretty cool considering that it's not a yeast bread and you didn't have to like knead it and punch it down and let it rest and like the steps for mini breads. The next step for our bread is we're going to be adding our liquid ingredients. And let's just clear a couple things out of the way here. So for our liquid ingredients, we're going to have 8 ounces of lukewarm water. We're going to microwave the water for 1 minute, along with a teaspoon of apple cider vinegar and a tablespoon of olive oil. She uses avocado, but I'm using olive oil. And also, if you happen to make kombucha, you can use your own kombucha vinegar for this as well. Pour our 1 cup of water. Our teaspoon of vinegar. And our tablespoon of oil. All right, it's going in the microwave for 1 minute. I like to go ahead and stir the ingredients together prior to adding the liquid ingredients. I just feel like you get a better blend that way. So while we're microwaving our water and our oil mixtures, we'll just give these a quick little blend. This is our sunflower seed. This is bread number 1. We're going to go ahead and add our liquid ingredients to the blend of dry ingredients. Let's just loosely mix this together because we're going to let it rest while we get our water and our other dry ingredients blended. This warm water is key because it helps the psyllium and the flaxseed absorb the moisture, which is what kind of is the glue for the bread. All right, that's good enough. Let's move on to bowl number 2. We will need a cup of water, a tablespoon of olive oil, and a teaspoon of our vinegar. We'll put this in the microwave for a minute. And we will, this is the almond bread. And again, I've used almond flour and it worked great, but for today's demonstration, I wanted to use the actual seeds and nuts. Let's go ahead and preheat our oven to 400. Now prior to starting the video, I went ahead and prepared my bread pans. I have 3 bread pans and I've put a wax paper inside of them and lightly coated them with olive oil. One of my pans is a silicone pan and I actually think you could probably just bake it directly in the silicone, but just to be on the safe side, let's use our paper with the oil. All right, that one's ready to rest. We need a cup of water. Perfect. A tablespoon of olive oil. And a teaspoon of vinegar. Let's microwave this for a minute. We can go ahead and blend our next bowl. This one is going to be our cashew bread. So when we start to handle the bread dough, we're going to want to wet our hands, and we'll actually use water to help us if we have any cracks. It's kind of unique how this goes together. Kind of reminds me of making Play-Doh with flour, if you've ever done that before, and patching it with a little water on your hand. This just blends together so nicely. And we're going to let it rest because we're letting the flax seed and the psyllium husk absorb the water, because that truly is the glue to this bread. It's pretty remarkable how well this works. All right, so we're going to be ready to work with bowl number 1. Let's go ahead and get a little water. And if you found it was too dry, you could actually go ahead and add a little bit more water, but I haven't had any problems with that. It's worked really well for me. So let's get our hands wet. See what I'm going to do now? Just going to kind of gather this together and work all the flour into it. All the ingredients, I should say. There's no flour in this. We're going to kind of make a little bit of a ball and then slowly shape it into an oval. You can just wet your hands as you need. As we form this, we're going to want to get rid of all the cracks, because if you have a crack before you bake it, you're going to have a crack when it comes out of the oven. And this isn't going to rise a whole lot, but it really is going to be very similar to bread. I like mine toasted the best. I've used it to make egg sandwiches. You could use it for any sandwich. Now granted, it's going to be a small slice, but you don't really need that big of a piece of bread when you're making egg sandwiches. So you can see how I'm just working this together. And it's really not that messy either. You're handling a dough, but it's not like getting all stuck all over my hand, so that's kind of nice. A lot of times when you're working with dough, it can be pretty messy. This is really pretty clean. All right, we're making some progress here. You really do want to smooth out the surface, because if you don't, it will crack where the surface is irregular. It's not that hard. It seems a little odd, but it's not that hard. You can hear my dog walking around. She's not sure why I'm talking to myself. All right, that looks pretty good. We'll go ahead and put that in one of our pans. And move on to bread number 3, or bread number 2. Again, we'll just work it all in together. This one seems a little drier, so I'll have to get a little more water on my hands. But it's super easy to work with. You can see I'm just getting as wet as I need to help it hold together, and continuing to form a bread shape. And I think the recipe is pretty forgiving. The first time I made it, I was a little nervous about having to weigh the ingredients versus just measuring with a cup, but it actually works out really well. I didn't have any problems. It was successful the first try, so don't be afraid to try this, because it really is pretty cool. And again, it doesn't have any wheat flour in it, so it's going to be low carb, as in keto, and it doesn't have any gluten in it. So anybody who has issues with gluten, this might be a really good resource for you. And it doesn't have any eggs or any milk or any cheese in it. Most of the keto bread recipes are really heavy with eggs or cheese. Make sure we get all the cracks sealed here. Really important. One time when I made it, I didn't get all the cracks sealed, and it will crack in that location. So just keep adding a little water. It doesn't even get gummy, which is kind of cool. You would think it would, but it doesn't. Bet you didn't think we were going to make bread this way, huh? And to toast it, you can just toast it in a regular toaster. You can toast it on the stove top. You can toast it in a little air fryer. It's really versatile. Some of the keto breads are not that versatile as far as reheating. All right, now we're down to our last one. This is the cashew flour. It looks like this absorbed the water really nicely. Let's go ahead and start forming it. And when you bake it, it comes out a lot like an artisan bread. It's pretty awesome. To come up with a real artisan bread, it's actually a lot more work than this. Now, if you're just doing one loaf, it goes together a lot faster. But I really wanted to do 3 loaves, and I really wanted to try all 3 types of sunflower seed, almond, and cashew. Really been wanting to try that. Another one I want to try sometime is pumpkin seed. One of my friends suggested that, and it sounds really good as well. I have a feeling there's a lot of versatility with this. So don't be afraid to experiment like I'm doing. All right, let's put this one in here. And let's turn this so you can see our preparation. We have all 3 of our loaves here, and our oven is still heating up. When it hits 400, I'm going to go ahead and put it in the oven. I'm going to let it bake. I'm going to let it bake for 50 minutes, and then we're going to shut the oven off. I have the most success when I let it just sit for 2 hours. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and put the bread in, and we will come back when it's time to pull the bread out of the oven. Well, I think we're about ready to give these a try. I think you could have made these a little more decorative by putting maybe sunflower seeds or poppy seeds on top of them. But let's go ahead and try the cashew one first. Just going to do a little slice. Looks pretty good here. I'm going to take a taste of it plain. Oh yeah, this is really good. Let's try it with some butter. Right now, I'm telling you hands down, the cashew is my absolute favorite. Even without the butter, but I've actually tried all of them, so I don't want to like slice into all of them, but I can tell you right now, these are really good. And if you're looking for a bread fix and you don't want all the carbs, this recipe is a ticket. I hope you enjoyed my video. Please consider liking and subscribing. Thank you so much.